Hey everybody, welcome into another mod overview during the Red Alert Unified Anniversary celebrations. Today we're going to be having a look at a Red Alert 2 slash Yuri's Revenge mod called Mental Omega. This is probably one of the biggest mods for Red Alert 2. It's quite an impressive collaboration of work. It's been going since 2005, 2006. Essentially, it's acting as a unofficial sequel of sorts to the base RA2 game, and you might see here on screen already that we have four factions instead of the usual three. So from left to right, you've got the Allies, Soviets, Yuris, and then you have the Foehn Revolt. So it's pretty interesting having the additional fourth faction on here. There is a lot included with this mod. It is quite an ambitious achievement in terms of what they've actually managed to do here. They've most recently released the finales for their single player content. So just for some context with just how much work is involved in this mod, there's about 100 plus, I believe, individual single player missions, which is absolutely huge for a mod. It tends to break it down into like 12 missions per faction, spread over two chapters, so a total of 24 missions per faction. And the Foehn Revolt acts as a sort of full stop on the end of that with like just a single chapter's worth of campaign missions. However, the overall quality and level of the missions from what I've played in this mod to date has been absolutely outstanding, I might even say. It's a huge improvement in terms of the base Red Alert 2 engine, and it has quite a thriving popularity in terms of both the single player fan base but also for the multiplayer. So to clarify on that, it seems to be quite big in terms of the Chinese, potentially the Japanese player base, which is always the case if you tend to pop on to Mental Omega during the week. You'll always see lobbies up with a bunch of Mandarin symbols, kanji, whatever you like. So it is definitely quite popular in that regard. The Discord channel for it is also quite huge, and they've only recently, within the last week, released version 3.3.6, which has added finales to their single player campaign stuff. So it's very exciting time for the modders to be able to wrap up all of the work that they've been doing for quite a long time. In terms of what's actually included, you can go through the website here, metalomega.com. I'll link it below on the YouTube channel. But essentially, as you can see here, it's going for like the almost perfect Yuri's Revenge sequel kind of a thing, which is pretty awesome. And they go into a little bit of detail in here about the Foehn Revolt, the Epsilon Army, the Allied Nations, and the Soviet Union. So they're your four factions. It prides itself on terms of having sub factions. So there's 3 sub factions per each main faction, leading to a total of 12 factions. Has a whole bunch of new campaigns, as mentioned. It has cooperative campaigns, which is very interesting from a player perspective. So let's say if you and your friend want to play some multiplayer, but you don't really feel like PvP or just going up against the allies, there are specifically designed maps for 2 players plus, I think it's maximum 2 players, against the AIs. As it says here, there's 36 missions for it. So they're specifically designed for co-op purposes. They're not just modifications of the base campaign missions. So again, a lot of work has gone into that. There's a new challenge mode that they have as well in terms of the skirmishes. So you and your ally can go up against a lot of waves of enemies in these kind of scenarios, which is very interesting. And again, a lot of work involved in trying to get that set up. A whole bunch of skirmish maps and modes. We'll go into that in a little bit. New soundtrack. It's a pretty kick-ass soundtrack, to be fair. Improved audio visuals, free multiplayer via CNCnet, all that good stuff. So people who have played any of the RA2s online lately will be familiar with the CNCnet online setup. That's the mod. The story itself, you can look into it, but it's based around 1982. As it says here, hungering for revenge, the Soviets launch a full-scale invasion against the US of A. The Allied primary defense network is shut down under mysterious circumstances, and the only thing between the Soviets and America is a tiny little ocean. The Third Great World War begins, where the strings are pulled by a single man, a remnant of Stalin's psychic legacy. So it's a pretty cool idea. As I said before, you have your 3 main factions: the Allies, the Soviets, the Epsilon perspective, which is essentially Yuri. But then you have the fourth faction, which is brand new, the Foehn Revolt is the name of the faction, I believe. So it's very interesting to see how that plays, and it's built very much like kind of a high-tech faction, which we'll get into some gameplay, and you'll get to see some of that shortly. In terms of the battle, There's a whole bunch of options. What we'll look at here briefly, this is just to highlight some of the cool features of the mod itself before getting to the gameplay. All the missions are selectable from an in-game list. It seems kind of par for the course these days. The skirmishes have a whole bunch of additional features. You can enable some special AI, the mental AI boost. The game defaults to mental level AI difficulty from the start, so if you're downloading this for the first time, you might want to consider turning that down to normal if you're doing the campaign. It definitely caught me off guard for the very first time I played the Allied campaign. Got absolutely destroyed by the mental AI. It is very challenging, so if you're somebody who is into a big challenge for these campaign missions, that will definitely see you through. If you're having issues, there's graphic render is there, high res unlocked by default, global soundtrack, yada yada. The modes here is kind of can be a bit overwhelming. Just the amount of different modes that you can have for the skirmish multiplayer on this game. So you can have standard mode, which is very self-explanatory. No bases, you just get a randomized set of units and no MCD. So if you just want to literally butt heads with someone and just go to town on them, you can do that. Tech share is pretty cool. Also, faction specific tech is shared by a faction, so if you don't want to necessarily worry about picking a specific sub faction, just want to try out, we'll try out the allies, we'll try out the Foehn Revolt, or we'll try out the Psycorps or whoever. It's a good way of doing it. Infantry only, you can only build certain tech, which lets you get infantry. You can't build other things like tanks or aircraft or any of that. Unholy Alliance should be familiar to most RA2 players. You get MCV from every single tech, every single faction. So 4 MCVs, one for the Revolt, one for the Psycorps, one for Allies, one for Soviets. You can deploy them all to start and then build your tech around that. Ultimate Alliance also allows you to get access to stolen tech, which we'll have a look at in a little bit. It's a pretty cool feature. It's kind of the similar idea of you get to spy into your allies' battle center, so to speak, in the base RA2, Yuri's Revenge, and you unlock a special unit. It's similar in nature to that, but a little bit different in how it works. As it says here, you build like an eco booster structure, and then you unlock it, so it's pretty cool. Free for all, straightforward, no defenses. You can't build any of the defenses. Assault, destroy the enemy flag and protect your own. Capture the enemy flag. So they're kind of your standard flag type setups. Islands, all player home locations are on islands. Pretty interesting. Fortress, multiple players form a team to destroy one or two in a fortress. Land grab, all players home locations are in the center of rather small maps. Oil control, no ore is available on the maps, only capturable oil derricks. Bounty hunt, players can get money for killing objects or collecting crates. King of the Hill, whoever holds the special psychic beacon long enough wins. Tournament 1v1 and 2v2 is a specific tourney rules, and turns off reinforcement pads and stolen tech. It's a pretty useful tooling. There is an active community for Mental Omega in terms of the competitive scene and holding tournaments and stuff like that, and all that information is on their Discord, which I definitely recommend you check out. I'll be leaving a link below the video for that as well. They have a no rush mode, so no weapons can be used, and no MCV approach for the first 10 minutes. It's pretty cool. Challenge mode, special maps where 2 players fight 3 AIs in a very unusual scenario, so that kind of should be straightforward enough. And then cooperative are these special missions designed explicitly for 2 human players to play. So this is a lot of modes, and with each one of these there's quite a lot of varying maps as well. Obviously specifically for the likes of the challenge and cooperative, but even the maps for the likes of bounty hunt or just your standard tech share and things like this, like it's it's kind of a lot of content. And since this has been going since 2006, the work that's been put into it definitely shows, and I am slightly biased, and I've played a little bit of this. I've done the Allies chapter 1 campaign. I'm currently working through the Soviet chapter 1 campaign, and I've had a few skirmishes here and there. So I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say a fanboy, but definitely a fan of the work that I've seen so far put into this, which is awesome. In terms of some variations in terms of what's normal, they changed the resource ratio, they've changed some support powers, some stat modifiers. Alternate unit modes is a cool feature of this, not necessarily in the base RA2 Yuri's Revenge, where you can basically deploy like your tank and you can get like a secondary type of fire and use that instead. It's a cool idea. Enhanceable defenses, multi-engineer if you want that, expanded stolen tech. So it's pretty, like, it's a lot. It's a lot of cool work that they've done. And the site here is actually pretty good in terms of going through the variations between the 4 main factions. So if you want to have a look at the allies and the allied specific units, You can go on through here and see the specific additional subfaction benefits, characteristics. So the allies get USA, they also get the European Alliance, and then they also get the Pacific Front, whereas the Soviets get access to Russia, and they get access to the Latin Confederation, and they get access to China. Epsilon get access to Psi Corps, which is kind of your standard Yuri type faction. You get Scorpion Cell, and you get the Epsilon headquarters, each one specializing in their own thing. You can read more on the site about this yourself, or pause the video at these sections. Foehn Revolt, you got the High Head, you got the Wings of Coronia, and you got the Last Bastion. So all in all, there's quite a lot of information here. Also worth noting quickly is the stolen tech units and the neutral structures. So stolen tech units is a cool little, I forget what you call these things, but like a quad diagram where you can go through and see who could get extra tech from what opponents. It's pretty cool. So you can see it all there. It's very interesting. It's a cool mechanic to be able to have and to incentivize users to go through and try different combinations of tech. As they say, Ultimate Alliance game mode allows you to unlock these by default once you get the relevant eco structure. But very, very cool that they have that added. They also have a full list here of all the neutral structures, so Tech Derricks, Tech Depot Bank. There's a whole bunch of regular ones, but also a few new ones that you may not have seen before. So there's definitely quite a bunch in this. You will not be lost for interesting structures and specific maps to do. Also, that's kind of stood out to me a little bit is the defensive structures that they've made capturable for these neutral tech structures. It's quite an interesting idea. Usually you can't capture, for instance, your opponent's defensive structures, but being able to capture these neutral structures is a nice workaround and kind of changes a lot in terms of map balance and map control. So definitely something to bear in mind when you go through that. Campaign, you can get through it all. You can have a brief overlook of what's here. This is a little, I'm not sure if this is up to date on their Mental Omega site yet, with the recent drop of 3.3.6. These missions, for example, I believe have all been added, all the grayed out ones here, which is absolutely awesome. So fair play to them for getting that done. And as mentioned before, they have their own custom soundtrack, which you can download here, which is actually taking us nicely to the ModDB page. So you can download Mental Omega directly from the Mental Omega website, or you can go onto ModDB and get it here as well, which is pretty damn cool. It's very straightforward as well in terms of actually downloading it and setting it up. If you set up any other ORA2 mods in the past, it should be an absolute breeze to you. There's not a huge amount to it. You download the main installer, and then once you have the main installer downloaded, you may want to add the soundtrack files. Again, there's very detailed instructions here on the ModDB page for how to do it. It's more or less just unzipping your files into a ORA2 install location, and then that's pretty much it. Once you open Mental Omega for the first time, if you do the 3.30 version, it'll prompt you if you want to upgrade to the latest version. If not, you can always do the manual update. As it says here, get 3.3.0 first. So they definitely encourage you using the built-in configuration for that stuff. But yeah, that's kind of a prerequisite look at everything involved with the mod. It's huge, but with that, we're going to now go over to the game and have a look at some gameplay from these different modes and have a look at the client. Alright, so here we are with the Mental Omega game client. Just to give a brief overview of what's actually here. Quite a lot of players currently online, 653, it's no small feat. But as you can see, the campaign section here breaks down all of the individual playable missions for each faction on each chapter. So the Allied Nations Act 1, Act 2, Soviet Union Act 1, Act 2, the Epsilon Army Act 1, Act 2, and then the Foehn Revolt Origins, as well as a load of special operations. So you're not going to be stuck for gameplay in here at all. Also, as mentioned previously, just be careful with the difficulty level. It'll likely default to mental. I recommend that you maybe consider putting it down to normal for your first playthroughs, because these missions are not a cakewalk by any stretch. In addition to the campaign, you've got actually your skirmishes. We've previously talked a little bit about all the different game modes, but you can just see the huge list of like maps that they have available. Like these are just the standard maps, for example, which is absolutely massive, right? We went through all these different kinds, but there's also the challenge maps. So you've got 1 to 12, 1 to what is it, 22 here. Challenge medium, 1 to 22. Challenge hard, 1 to 22. So these are balanced slightly differently. Co-op casual. So you've got a whole bunch of allied missions, Soviets, Epsilon apps. For the casual, the normal, and again the hard adjusts the difficulty. Hard, aka mental, in this mod. Pretty cool. There's quite a lot here in terms of the skirmishes, and then as mentioned previously, the multiplayer is quite popular in terms of being very active. If this is just on a random Monday afternoon, let's say. Be curious to see how many lobbies are up. We saw that there were like 500 or so people currently online, which is insane. You should have slightly better luck in terms of this game search IP stuff. This just seems to be happening to me with a bunch of my local setup, but it should hopefully be a bit quicker for yourselves. But once you are on, it should list all the available lobbies on the left hand side, as well as all people currently online on the right hand side. Yeah, so here we go. You can see all the lobbies starting to populate, and as mentioned, you can see a bunch of Mandarin symbols there due to how popular it is in China, it appears. There's also language packs for this, in case I haven't mentioned that before, for both China and Russia. So if you're looking to play with those specific languages, you can do it. You can see like this thing just filling up like crazy. You're never going to be short of access to games. A lot of them are password protected, but you can also pop onto the Mental Omega Discord server if you wish to try and liaise with a few members of the community, if you want to set up some one-on-ones or try and join some of the tournament events or similar activities that are going on around the game. That's a good place to do it. But yeah, you can see here, huge amount of lobbies currently open. I think this is probably the most popular I've seen a mod's online servers. And this is just on some random Monday after the 3.3.6 patch dropped and changed some of the balance and units available. So do bear that in mind. Your mileage might vary a little bit. So that's how the online looks. And then, as mentioned, there's a couple of extras. You got statistics, you got your map editor, your options. You got plenty of options in here. I usually play my Redditor 2 mods on the 1280 by 720 resolution, primarily for single player purposes. Usually the campaigns are based around screen movement and stuff like that. That tends to look better if you are zoomed in on that resolution. But you can play it, and quite a lot of the multiplayer scene will play it on the 1920 by 1080 resolution, because you got much bigger view of the map overall, and you need to be in multiple places at once, so it can be a little bit easier in terms of micro. You can set a whole bunch of settings here. You can change the renderer if you're having graphical difficulties. I haven't had to. I use the TSD draw by default, Mental Omega Team. A bunch of audio settings, all very straightforward. You can use a global soundtrack if you wish. You can go into the game settings here, player name, yada yada. CNC net, you can set a whole bunch of stuff here, updater, blah blah blah. And then the soundtrack section here will actually take you, if you don't have it by default, to the ModDB page where you can download and add it to the game. I have done that already, so it should all be good and set up. Alright, so first up, I think what we're going to do is go and look at some skirmishes, just to check out each of the 4 main factions in this game, so you can get a feel for what's included with them. So we go into skirmish here. We'll probably go as the texture mode here, just to make sure that we can have a good overview of like all the involved units for each individual faction. As I say, there's 3 sub-factions for every single faction included in this. If we have a look at every single one, we'll be here kind of all day. Let's not do that. So we'll go with any allies versus any Soviets here for the first one. I'll use this map. I bumped up the starting default credits here to 50k. Usually you'd be down to like 10k or so. Game speed's on fast. There's a whole bunch of interesting settings here. The mental AI boost. Your AI will use special tricks against the player. It's a pretty cool idea. Immune to oil derricks, so you can have like indestructible constant eco going. A Conyard deployed at the start. Permanent radar. And then a whole bunch of settings around the ore growth. So you can set this to double, minimal, none. Tech defense, you can set it to bunkers and none. All minor, none. So there's a whole bunch of customization that you can do. But let's get into this and see how we get on against the easy AI. I'm not overly familiar with the AI behavior in skirmishes on this. I've done a couple with normal, and it's been a little bit on the painful side. Not too bad, but I just haven't been practicing too much. I've primarily been spending time with this mod on the single player. in my personal time, which has been a lot of fun. I've currently finished chapter 1 of the Ally campaign, as mentioned. It was quite enjoyable, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes throughout the rest of the campaign. If people are interested, again, they can check all that stuff out on my YouTube channel. But here's our power plant. We're going to open it up. The tech at the start of this mission isn't going to be anything too crazy. You can see here we get an early arsenal depot. This unlocks some additional units and tech. All very straightforward stuff. Additional gates here may not be included in the initial RA2. We get a couple of attack doggies and send one straight to the enemy base. Worth noting, in this mod, attack dogs can swim, so it's a little bit different. It's a pretty cool feature. We'll get the arsenal depot here now that we have our first harvester down. I am playing this once again on 1280 by 720, but you can play it on 1920 by 1080, so you can have it an even higher resolutions. So you can have it looking pretty zoomed out if that's something that you're looking for. These siege cadre units I'm building are exclusive to building the arsenal depot for allies. They're essentially prism infantry, as you can see here. Pretty cool. GIs, very standard units, nothing particularly special. They can still deploy and do all that good stuff. Looks like we got a couple of field medics for free with the arsenal depot. Don't think I built those, so that's kind of cool. War factory, we get one of those down. And you can see here, there's quite a bunch of starting tech available. Traditionally you'd only get like 2 or 3 of these if you only have one faction, but because we've got tech share on, we can see all of them. We'll get chrono miners set up first, so I guess we'll get a few of those. You can see here the siege cadre is not super effective against infantry, primarily useful against tanks or against structures. I can cancel these, build a few robot tanks, a few Surgies, a few Archons, a few Bulldogs, a few Cavaliers, a few Cap tanks. Cap tank, good name, good name. In terms of the Surgies, kind of like an IFV, you can put an infantry unit into it and it'll change its attack type, which is a neat idea. I guess we don't need this many of them. The Striker here is your IFV unit. You can see that the robot tank here is actually shooting a laser. It's pretty fun. And there's your Surgi. Here it is. Pretty fun. These units again feature in the main campaign as well. Here's your IFVs, so your Archons. So again, similar to the Surgi, you can put infantry in it and it'll change its attack type. Here we have a Bulldog light tank. If I'm not mistaken, this is one of the tanks that it has a primary fire, just like a standard tank, but you can use this switch feature and it'll do an area of effect and it'll essentially weaken units within that field. So it's a good example of some of the additional features this mod adds. If we look at the build structures here, these are all quite new. Air Force Command is probably the most familiar. You build that, you get access to your radar, plus you can build air units like Harriers. We'll see what available units there are to the allies here. So we got a Cavalier medium tanks, pretty good. This is a Capital Hover tank, so this is a sub-faction specific unit, for example. Pretty good, so he's able to hover out in the water, as you can see. Very nice. And again, you can have a look at the individual sub-faction specs outside of the game. Cryo shot here. This is one thing that I did find a little bit peculiar about this mod, is that you have to pay to use super weapons. So you can see here the cryo shot actually costs 800 to use. So it's not a simple matter of it just charging up and then you just like go to town on it. You have to make sure you have the resources to be able to forward firing it. You get some Rocketeers here. Navy SEALs you can get pretty much at the gate too, which is pretty nice. What else we got here? Allied MCV, Stallion Transport, Stormchild, Black Eagle, and Harrier. So normally you'd only get, let's say, one of these, depending on your faction. So I guess I'll build one of each of these, see how it looks. Robotics Center, Shield Command. I guess Robotics Center will be next up. Alright, our boys are doing okay. AI, you can see they've built out their base in a fairly standard way, nothing too crazy. Here's our robotics center. They just used like a Terra drone drop there, which is pretty cool. Not something that you'd see in the base or a game. Now you can see I have access to a tech center. Before that, I guess we'll build a shield command. You can build these Zephyr units. These Zephyrs are essentially long-range artillery units that can fire quite far. Ally heavily using his drop powers. My power is quite low, so I need to restore my power. You can see the Archon IFVs here are going to be able to shoot this down. I guess I'll build some Patriot missiles as well, just to be on the safe side. Yeah, this is primarily why we're focusing on the easier difficulties, just so we're able to actually talk a bit while doing this. Yes. See the Black Eagle jet here. Getting in, maybe we'll get some damage done. Get some. I guess we want to get some power properties set up. You can build a power turbine here, 200. Essentially upgrades your default power plants. As you can see here, you can tell the indication from the color change. So it's definitely something that's worth getting. Your power plants are quite fragile though, so that is something to bear in mind. I'll get some Rocketeers set up, power turbine here, and then we can look at getting our tech center. So you can see the Soviets again using their special abilities. I guess we'll try a cryo shot over here. It'll slow down the vehicles, I think is the intention of it. Again, I'm not fully versed in all the intricacies of the mod itself. I've only played little bits here and there. But Hunter Seeker, the Zephyr robot ability here is so your Zephyrs can shoot at a beacon from far away. Can be interesting, have weird effects, so you're able to shoot halfway across the map, for example. Tech center's ready, want to get that down. And then we can build a experimental workshop ore purifier. Get the ore purifier first. Probably want to get ourselves some chrono miners. Here we have, prism tower. That works as similar. You have gun turrets in this too, which is a little bit different to the base game. It functions pretty much as you would expect. Somehow they've gotten access to my Rocketeers. They must have stolen my tech. Oh no, they haven't. They're just shooting this. Never mind. Never mind. We're good. We're good. So the ore purifier. We'll put this up here. And we'll get an experimental workshop. So you can see the classic Mirage tank, prism tank. Prism tanks are kind of nerfed in this compared to what you might expect. One of these, one of these, one of these, one of these. Remember, because of this is mixed tech, you wouldn't necessarily get access to all of these items. Usually only a couple of them. I've seen there the explosive demo truck of the Soviets. Very expensive and costly. See the Mirage tanks here, as you might expect. The Zephyr doing some good damage. These guys are kicking my ass. I seem to have lost my tech center, which has prevented my tech. So that is something to be mindful of here as well, that your tech is tied to your structures, so if you lose the structure, you lose the ability to build that tech. Which can be a little bit on the painful side. Nice. EM pulse down for the enemy. Lightning rod. Not quite sure what damage effect this is going to have. I guess it attracts lightning within this area. That, or I guess the intention is for it to give you a temporary boost of power. So we'll get prism tanks, hailstorm, blizzard, we'll get a second war factory, just so we're actually able to survive a little bit better. Of course, terror drones, still a pain in the ass in this mod. See, EM pulse went off here and made these tanks inoperable. Prism tank here is doing some damage. It's not fantastic. You can see you can build a Grand Canyon, camo pillbox. Once we get a camo pillbox, shut it off. Get our second war factory down. Get some power. Lost our barracks, that's okay. This unit is a hailstorm. I'm not overly familiar with this. Looks like it'll send a actual Harrier plane in to do some damage. It's pretty cool. Here we have a blizzard tank. So again, focusing kind of on the cryo type damage. Looks very similar in nature to a prism tank. I think we built most of these. Got the charm tank coming. Camo pillbox. You can see here it's slightly stealthed. Here we have the charm tank. You can change its weapon type, so you can see here fires like a little blast and then dies because it's got a terror drone in it. Very cool, very cool. Grand Canyon, I guess. As you can see, even on the basic difficulties, it is a lot to manage. Again, part of that is just because of the game speed too. But once you're playing it, like obviously I'm spending some overhead here to try and make sure I'm building all the units and talk a little bit about the functionality of them. But if you're actually just playing this in a competitive setting, like it's a lot of fun because there are a lot of different options available to you, especially when you're primarily focused on winning, right? Like when you're actually playing a competitive match, it can be quite a lot. So here's the special unit of one of the factions, the little gunship. This, do a few of these. Losing most of our base at this point, but I think we've managed to cover the majority of the allies' units here, so we should be good. But you should get a good feel there in terms of like what's in the arsenal of the allied capacity, right? Pretty fun. There's quite a lot to it, but yeah, I think we'll leave this this skirmish off right about here. GG AI, you win this time.
Battle control terminated.
Okay, so next up we're going to try out some Soviet gameplay. So we're going to go with any Soviets against any allies. We're going to use similar map settings. We're just going to change the map to the Amazonas Zeta. And we're going to go straight into it. Again, we're using tech share, so our specific subfaction here doesn't matter too much. But nice to know they have different splash screens based on the individual subfaction you've chosen. Looks like we're spawning on the bottom left of this map, so the opponent should be on the top right. Get ourselves Tesla reactor, barracks. Again, opening structures tend to be quite similar. It's only when you start getting it after the barracks that it changes. So the field bureau, for example, gives you similar access to the Allies armory type structure that gives you the cadres. We'll get some dogs aid, get a few conscripts. Send one this way, we'll send one this way, and we'll send one straight into the enemy. Gotta do what you gotta do. Get a war factory down. Again, as a reminder, I'm playing this on the lower res, primarily due to the way that the camera pans and stuff like that. It's also somewhat better for showing off the new unit models that the mod offers. Using it at a higher resolution, you start to lose some of the detail, which is fine when you're playing it in a competitive level, but a little bit meh if you're just playing it somewhat casually. So here we're going to get a bunch of war miners up. We just get 2, don't know why I was getting 4 there. Half track, Rhino tank, Jaguar tank, Tiger APC, and get some Keelan assault tanks. Going with 2 ref this time.
Building.
Get a few sentry guns down, try hold these 2 chokes.
Cannot report here. Building.
We'll also want to get a radar dish. Before that, we want to get more power.
Construction complete. Building.
So we're getting our sentry guns down.
Construction complete. Building. Unit ready.
Airbase. So they kind of balanced in such a way that Soviets also get access to an airbase, which
Unit ready.
is interesting. It's kind of like the way that Allies get the Harrier. They want an equivalency for Soviets, so they get this little airbase, and then they can build Foxtrots, it looks like.
Unit ready.
They can also build a gyrocopter, so it's like their solution to a rocketeer.
Unit ready.
Radar dish. So, got a few vehicles down. Here are the half tracks. You can see they have kind of Gatling gun type capability. They also seem to hold up to 2 infantry. Oops. Good. Get that guy. Want 2 of these on each field. Seems reasonable. Get a nuclear reactor, but we want to get power, so we're not building it super slow. Here are the Keelan tanks. As you can see, they got the kind of double barrel, but they only shoot 1 bullet. Oh, they kind of shot. They shoot two shots in sync. Barillo, Armadillo, Bomb Buggy, Demo Truck would be exactly what you expect it to be. This. Here's your gyrocopter unit. You can see it does like an AoE type damage.
Repairing. Building. Construction complete.
Okay, we're gonna get our lunar sentry gun here. I guess we want to put it near the Conyard in case there's some shenanigans here later on.
Unit ready. Construction complete.
There goes the
New
reactor.
construction options.
So you can build a battle lab, you can build a palace. Here's the Barillos. It's like a kind of like a flame APC type unit that they get access to. You can see some tech structures here that we can actually capture, including this.
Training.
It's kind of cool.
Unit ready.
Let's see if we can actually get out here and capture these.
Our base is under attack.
Guys.
Our base is under attack. Unit promoted. Repairing. Unit lost. Our base is under attack. Defense captured.
Guess we got a battle lab here.
Base is under attack. Unit lost. Tech building captured. Repairing. Defense upgraded. Our base is under
We're gonna want to just get a bunch of just Keelan tanks to try and better reinforce our base here.
ore miner under attack.
See, I've captured both of these, which is good. So battle lab's going down. We've got a palace.
Building.
With that, we can build a catastrophe tank, Fury drone, Buratino,
Unit ready.
smoke turret, sensory tower, repair crane, hammer defense.
Our base is under attack. Ore miner
Pretty
under
cool.
attack.
Vulture. Get one of those.
On hold.
So palace is ready. We'll pop that down here. Gives access to a scud launcher. It's kind of like a V2, V3 type solution. Tesla cruisers like a Tesla tank.
Unit ready.
Wolfhound's like an air superior unit.
Unit promoted. Unit
And we can build an arsonist.
Our base is
We can build an eradicator.
Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit lost.
Here's the arsonist.
Unit ready.
See the eradicator here. It's kind of like a more volatile detonator, I guess.
Unit ready.
See a drop's about to come in here.
Ore miner under attack. Our base is under
We're
attack.
getting an industrial plant
Ore
down.
miner under attack.
I guess we'll just
Unit
spam Rhino tanks. Or
Unit
Keelan
lost.
tank. I kind of like the Keelan tanks. Here's your scud launcher.
Repairing.
Uh, Gorillas here. You can have alt fire on these as well.
Lost.
It's pretty cool. Catastrophe tank, and then the Tesla tank. Then here's the little drone.
Unit ready. Reinforcements ready.
Yeah, so you can manually repair defensive tech structures, it looks like.
Unit ready. Unit lost.
These, I guess we'll go with like gyrocopters and rhino tanks. Feels like it might be a good combo.
Our base is under attack. Ore miner under attack. Unit ready.
I have Palace, have the Bat Lab.
Unit
The voxels and stuff, or I'm not sure if they're voxels or not, but the
lost.
custom sprites that they're using for the
Base is under attack.
new buildings and stuff is pretty cool. Big fan of them. Looks nice.
Unit
But I
ready.
think it's majority of the tech structures that we've seen.
Ready. Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit lost. Unit ready.
Get the Mirage tank.
Our base is under attack. Unit ready. Repairing.
So yeah, get these here, get these over here.
Unit ready.
So it's still very much at its heart. You know, it's Red Alert 2. They've made, you know, a lot of balance changes for the different units, different factions. They've made the sub factions somewhat interesting in terms of, you know, being able to specialize in terms of drone tech or something else.
Unit lost.
It's interesting.
Unit ready. Ore miner under attack.
Using the radar.
Building. Unit ready. Unit lost.
Come in here, try to get the Conyard. Come on, boys.
Unit lost. Unit ready.
Nice.
Unit lost. Unit lost. Unit promoted. Unit lost. Unit
I think that should be the end of their production facilities.
new construction options.
You can see I've got quite a bunch of special weapons here, so you would have seen the previous missions, for example, tank drop. Here it is here. It costs 2,400. Just as a reminder that there is cost associated with actually using this tech. Elite reserves, 1,500.
Unit ready.
Gear change bonus minus plus 3,000.
Our base is under
Pretty cool. Smoke bombs, motor ambush, terror drone. Like again, a lot of this stuff is restricted based on a per sub-faction basis, but
unit
you get a good feel hopefully here in terms of what's actually available to the individual factions. Not quite sure what the nuclear converter is. Elite reserves have been depleted. Cool, that's cool. Yeah, I think we've had a good look here in terms of what's available to the Soviets. It's pretty interesting. Again, from a balance perspective, they got the gyrocopters to kind of complement the Allies' Rocketeers. They've obviously spent a lot more details in terms of the various changes at the damage level, the armor level, the HP level, and it's also reflected in their changelog. So if you can check out their changelog on the ModDB page for the more recent 3.3.6 patch, which will show you a good indication of the various changes that they make, the considerations that they are having for the different campaigns. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Soviets feel very much like Soviets. It's cool having like these new kind of units in action on these maps.
reinforcements ready.
There we go.
You are victorious.
GG's. Alright, next up we're going to try out the Epsilon faction. This is like the Yuri type faction. And I guess we'll go up against the Foehn faction. And we'll see how this actually plays out. Using the similar game settings to before, 50,000 credits, everything else fairly standard. We're going to try it on a cold winter map. Looks like it's kind of like a nighttime winter map, so it should be interesting to see what the tile set and stuff's like. But yeah, let's go. Epsilon HQ. Again, we're playing it on tech share, so it doesn't matter too much which specific faction we start as. I haven't actually had an opportunity to play much, if any, of this faction to date. It's mostly been Allies and Soviets for me, so I am very curious to see how this feels. Seems like we defaulted to a nice Yuri style ping. Or refinery. So initiates, archers, spooks, engineers.
He has taught us well. I understand. He has taught us well. Enlighten me. I am but a student. I understand. There is much to learn. I understand.
Okay, we've got the ore here. So we got a synthesis vault. So that seems to be like our infantry tech unit structure.
New construction options.
Gatling cannon, we'll get one of those. Definitely an interesting take. So they've actually modeled their own ore refinery, I guess, instead of using the slave miner. Here's the synthesis vault. I'm not actually sure what that does. Yeah, so we can now get these bloatics and the brutes. Gatling cannon, we'll put one of these down. Okay, so those bloatics explode. Kind of expected it from how it looked, but you're never too sure. So you can build tank bunkers, fairly standard for Yuri's faction. I do like the looks of these structures and the lighting effects on them, it's pretty cool. I guess I got a couple of brutes. Gonna need a power plant after the war factory here, that's for sure. Get this, I guess, back here. Get a bioreactor, need some power. Can put these inside here. I think this powers up the power. 210, 260, yeah. To say, it's been a while since I played a Yuri faction. So we got a Mantis scrap tank, Lasher tank, Opus tank. Very cool. Gatling tank, Stinger, and a Ghost miner. So it looks like by default the Yuri miner is invisible unless getting eco. Aerodome, so this looks like our Air Force base equivalent. So should be able to build some air units from it. There's a capturable structure here. We'll get an engineer, may as well pick that up. So I'll leave all these out. Here's the Stinger unit. Again, reminder that this is all of the sub-factions merged into one, so your mileage is going to be limited slightly in terms of your specific sub-factions tech tree. That's pretty cool. That's paratroopers are now available, that's cool. Aerodome. Yeah, so now we can see that we can build these UFOs, it looks like. Jubuk attacker. This is looking a little bit dicey. Am I gonna die here? No. Okay. I'm gonna start spamming a bunch of units, make sure I stay alive long enough to show off some more of this. Gatling cannon seems super effective there, so big fan. I guess next up we're going to want to get we could get the radar spire or the Pandora's hub. Maybe the radar spire would be good, so we actually see what's going on the map. Kind of cool. I'm not sure if these are actually hitting these or if they're just flapping around while getting absolutely wrecked. We're going to need some Gatling tanks to deal with that. So they've sabotaged the power. Cool. We get the Pandora's hub here. It seems to be like a battle lab. We can also build an invader. It's cool. Dritter APC, so you can get a subterranean APC. Something's aggroed these guys. So we can get these Mantis tanks. Don't believe I have any in this army yet. I guess this is them. The Lashers. So here's a Mantis tank. Got a few here. Again, very lightweight, kind of single cannon fire stuff.
New construction.
So it looks like the Pandara hub has a bunch of upgrade options. So it's a little bit different in terms of a tech tree. Marauder, Shadow Tech, Epsilon Depth, Elite, Dune Rider. Okay.
Unit ready. Unit ready. Unit ready.
That's pretty cool. You know, it all feels very much like Yuri. Just the Shadow Tank. Interesting. Seems to have an alt fire as well. It's pretty cool. The campaign's very good in terms of getting you to explore the individual units and their alternate. Not quite sure what this is going to enable. It's a bit weird. It's very good in terms of getting you to
Select.
be able to familiarize yourself with the individual structures and their alternates in terms of units and their alt fires. It's pretty cool.
Unit ready. Building.
Guess some of these. I don't know, it's good.
Unit ready.
Something is triggering all my units to keep going over there, which is super annoying.
Unit ready. Our base is under attack. Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit promoted.
Inferno Tower.
Unit ready.
The Night Frame we've captured here. Cool. So like the Foehn Revolt units are very cybernetic, Gundam-y / high tech. We should probably pick up one of these plugs. I'm not quite sure what's a good one to do.
Unit ready.
Let's go with the Gene plug, I guess.
Unit ready.
See how that is. Keep building tanks. This is good. The Inferno Tower. I think I imagine this just captures units that go within it. I don't know for sure. Oh no, it just fires fire. Cool.
Unit ready.
Pretty cool. Mind Reader. Risen Monolith. That's cool.
Unit ready.
It's kind of like the old Obelisk of Light. It's nice. Gene plug. This goes in here.
New construction.
And they're low power. Guessing it's specialized meat in terms of a specific faction. I can see a whole bunch of extra superpowers, which is cool.
Construction complete. Unit
Cloning
ready.
vats are unlocked as well. Haze quad.
Unit lost.
Some long distance stuff here doing heavy damage to me.
Unit ready.
Whoa, guys, chill.
Our base is under attack.
Take me to front line. Let's clear the air. Scanning horizon.
Unit ready.
I am Dr. Yuri. Take me to front line.
Okay.
Construction complete. Unit ready.
Speeders.
On hold.
Get some of these. Why not? Sounds like it'll be useful. We'll start forming kind of a heavy
Ready.
frontal assault in the main entrance to their base, and then we'll just charge in. Stalkers? Sure.
Unit ready.
Yeah, the idea here is just so you can get a feel for what the faction is sort of like.
Unit
The power drops that we unlocked from the capture earlier, we can finally put them to some use. The Ravens get some vision. Oh, I can actually move this, that's cool.
Unit ready.
Was cool until it died. Shadow Ring, no idea what that did.
Unit lost. Unit ready. Building.
Guess we'll build some air units again.
Unit ready. Unit
Yeah,
ready.
let's do a little engagement here. See how this mixed army fares against the opponent.
Unit ready.
Again, you can imagine that there's a huge amount of variation between the different sub-factions, especially when you're in multiplayer against human opponents. Like whatever about the AI, but there's a huge potential for like different strategies with the different sub-factions. It does lead, I would say, like the one slight drawback to this is that it leads to some learning time to get up to speed with like all the different sub-factions. What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? What are all the individual units even? You get exposure to quite a bit. I mean, at least from the ally side, from what I played. But it's a huge amount of tech to try and familiarize yourself with. Like it's a lot. But once you do sit down and spend some time figuring it all out, then you're absolutely flying, I'm sure. The online scene is quite competitive, as I mentioned before, but there does seem to be quite a nice community in terms of the Discord server. So if you are looking for strategies, build guides, any of that stuff, there's rooms dedicated to it on there, so you can definitely suss that out.
Unit ready. New construction options. Our base is under
Yuri
attack.
is master. Guess we'll go for a lot of brutes, why not? And a bunch of lasher tanks. I mean, lasher tanks are the classic, right? I guess we should try to get some of these new units instead. Speeders, shadow tanks, marauders maybe. This inner bioreactor, maybe a second war factory, and then we'll try steamroll this guy.
Construction complete.
We can try get another plug in while we're waiting. I guess like a chem plug.
Unit ready.
Not quite sure what those burst. They seem to do some level of damage. It's not huge. Must be from these tanks.
Unit promoted.
Ruiner. Not quite sure what this will do.
Select fog. Unit ready.
Gatling gun's doing good work. So the chem plug we can. Oh, so you can only have one per Pandora's hub. So that's worth noting.
Unit ready.
Yeah, let's I guess we go in with all these boys. See how we do. Looks like they took out the
Unit ready. Unit lost.
air traffic thing I captured earlier, so we'll build a couple more here.
Unit lost.
We'll bring them with us in the army, see how we get on.
Unit lost.
This thing has got huge damage. The fuck?
Unit promoted.
Oof.
Unit ready.
Yikes. Just a neutralizer.
Unit
It's
ready.
definitely doing something.
Insufficient funds. Unit promoted.
Guess we'll just march the brutes in here, see how they get on.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Not doing a super good job.
Unit ready.
Fair, fair.
Unit ready. Unit lost. Unit ready. Unit lost.
I mean, brutes are never really intended to be anti-structure structures. Anti-structure structures, but you get the idea.
Unit lost.
But yeah, I think I'll leave this one here. You should get a good idea in terms of what's required,
Unit lost.
and what like the kind of tech generally looks like for Yuri. The assets and stuff look very nice. For the phone or for the
Unit
for the general faction, like the fact that there's like 2 or 3 different sub factions mixed in here as well makes me think that the likes of these plugs are probably restricted to one per sub faction. And then you get the specific units unlocked with them. I don't know that for certain, but it is interesting that there are alternate tech trees available. Cool to see some of the phone here as well and how they're acting excited to try those guys out next. Yeah, GG's, interesting, very interesting.
Battle control terminated.
Alright, so this time we're going to try test out some of the phone against Epsilon. We're going to try out this Dawn of Dune map, just to try out a desert tile set, something a bit different, so you have a bit of a better feel for what's available in the map pool. I'm going to go for 1v1, easy AI, go for the max credits again, high tech level, all the basic settings. So it's like top left versus, bottom left versus top right. Let's go. Dawn of Dune. Curious to try out this faction. I've only played them once or twice. Again, we're doing tech share, so should have access to all their tech. I think of all the factions, this one's probably the most complex or varied in terms of its sub-factions. They have wind traps instead of power plants, so it's a big shout out, that kind of gets to the old Dune games too. It's a cool idea. As you can see, the tech structures and stuff look very futuristic, kind of fits in with the theme of the faction. It's pretty cool. I'm digging the soundtrack as well. You're getting to hear a couple of different tracks from it during these skirmish matches. Big fan of what they've done with it. It's pretty cool. Fashion wall, sonic emitter, shrike nest. Okay. So night frame, lancer, engineer. So they've got these kind of bigger mech type infantry, so to speak, which is a cool idea. I kind of like the map tile set here. It's a bit contrasting in this like desert landscape to have the Foehn Revolt, but I think that's fair enough. Barracks upgrade, Netrunner protocol. We'll try that out. So it seems to be like the solution to upgrading your ability to build an extra infantry, similar to what we've seen from all the other factions. So this has to go onto the racks. Maybe I think it just speeds up the rate at which you produce these units. That's an interesting option. So you're able to get these out much quicker. Very interesting. I can also get access to this decoy team. Custom refineries and harvesters look like they're small but faster than the regular ones, maybe. Get a war factory down. Okay, minor might. I guess we'll get 2 of these. Torn, Draco Tank, Jackal Racer, Cyclops, and a Bison Tank. Remember, this is a mix of sub-factions ended together. So you'll only have access to a limited subset of these depending on what sub-faction you have chosen. But yeah, I like the aesthetic of the faction. Looks pretty cool. You can build engineers. I guess we'll capture this oil tech derrick at one. Here it is. Here are the Teratons. I think these are probably anti-air since they're not firing. And then these are the Draco Tank. So these are like turreted tanks. Then here is the Jackal Racer. Whoa! Whoa! What's going on here? Chill. So the Cyclopses, they're very similar to the Tibson Titans from the looks of it. Guess we'll get 2 refineries here just to be safe, because they seem to be quite persistent. Bison Tank. The Yuri using the obelisk in the enemy's base rather than a defensive manner. That's kind of cool. Okay, there's a second ore refinery. I'm not quite sure where the second ore patch is. Probably far away from there. Cloud Piercer, we get that next. And army composition looks pretty damn cool. Decoy team? Let's see what this is. So these are all. I wonder if these give me vision. Nice. So Cloud Piercer. We'll get that going. I have no idea what does what here. Cyber Kernel, Nanofiber Loom, Roadrunner, Phone MCV, Buzzard, Condor. So the Cloud Piercer seems to be like your aircraft facility. Enables you to build aircraft. Looks like they're using mind control tanks here from the Yuri. There's a cyber kernel, get a wind trap, gets an irradiator, a few more of these cyclones. Alright, we got the cyber kernel, right? Yeah, here it is. Always a bit tricky with a faction you're not familiar with that looks very differently to the other factions. Try and figure out what is going to be enough to keep us alive here. So here's your Condor. It's pretty cool. That is the Condor, right? Yeah. There's the nanofiber loom. You can see here it's giving us access to a bunch of expansions, so kind of similar to the mind control faction. Build some sweepers. Build a huntress. Build some synchronins. Railgun tower seems good. Get some defenses up properly. Spin blade sounds dangerous. What's this do? Yeah, it dies instantly when I put it down in front of the enemy. Cool. Using the right setting, I'm sure it's very effective. Probably more intended as a defensive ability rather than offensive. Get the one shot going. These guys need to pull back. Turmoil grids, stun grids. You can build grids. Seems to be a functionality of this faction. It's pretty cool. Something unique. Clan Piercer expansion, Cyber Cannon expansion, Nanofiber Loom expansion. Alright. That's pretty cool. Sweeper. There's a nanofiber loom extension. You can tell from the graphic on top of it what extension the player has. That's kind of useful, I suppose. So you go here. More Cyclops. What's this? Mastodon. Mastodon sounds like it'll be good. Want to get another War Factory? What else you got? Build a Giant's Bane and a Clairvoyant. Sure. This is a big boy. This is the Mastodon. This is like a massive mana tank. It's pretty cool. Let's see, Chaos Touch, Nanofiber Sync, a Recon Sortie. I think this is just Vision, right? Yeah. Wow, that's cool. Get the War Factory down. AI has expanded quite a lot here for the Yuri faction, so I guess they're intended to play like this. Seeing a lot of UFO structures from them, invaders. Interesting, they must have chosen a slightly different expansion for one of their tech structures, because it's different to the tech that seemingly looked available when I played the faction. Accidentally hit the F key, it like follows your units. It's kind of cool. Okay. Curious to see how this will go, considering the mind control tech powers of Yuri usually are a pain in the ass for offensive attack. But I think we can try, see how it goes. I think we've got a good feel for what kind of tech is involved with the faction here. The only thing we haven't really tried out are these grids. But we are kind of out of cash. These towers, capturing the units. again, when you have a better idea in terms of what's actually what the strengths and weaknesses of the actual sub-factions and main factions are, then you can obviously go about your attacks and have better counters and stuff like that. But the idea here again is just to give people an idea in terms of what the faction feels like. Stun grids. Okay, so it actually deploys a full grid of individual structures. I thought it might just give you one tile to place, but it looks like it does give you the 4 or 5. The neutralizer you've seen used against us before. Signal inhibitor is pretty good. Reprocessor, interesting. Seems like it's probably like the oil tech there, or like the oil refinery type thing. That's pretty cool. So I guess that's our look at the Foehn Revolt. I think I'll end this skirmish here. We get a good look at the landscape. It looks pretty nice. It's a cool tile set. This tank just like going in and out of existence depending on who captures it over here. It's pretty funny. But yeah, the factions all handle very differently, which is cool. Particularly the Foehn and the Yuri style faction. I keep forgetting the name of them. But essentially these two factions handle very differently to the Allies and the Soviets. They're very fun to play. And again, you have to have a good idea in terms of what the tech structure is, and if you are considering playing multiplayer, as I say, it's worthwhile having a look on the actual Mental Omega website, have a look at the individual sub-faction units there that you can build, and then referring to the Discord channel if you want to get a handle on build orders and stuff like that. But yeah, we're going to go back to the game client now. GG's.
Battle control terminated.
We had a good look there at the 4 different main factions and how they might handle in some skirmish games. Before we close off, I guess I'll quickly pop into the very first mission of the Allied campaign, just briefly to give you an idea of what kind of thing to expect with the actual campaign missions, what they might look like, without going into too much spoilery territory. So Red Dawn Rising here, we'll just launch it briefly. You can have a quick look, see how it is. We won't spend too long on it. Just so you can have an idea of like the scale of the maps and the missions and everything included with them. It's they're very impressive in terms of the length of them to be played. I've found that the majority of the missions tend to fall somewhere between 30 minutes to like an hour and a half. But we'll let the mission speak for itself a little bit here. Yeah, this tends to be why I played with the zoomed in resolution for these little kind of panning cutscenes and stuff.
New construction options.
You can see in-game icons for defensive structures, things you need to defend, key objectives. It's a nice addition to the game engine. But yeah, this very first mission, you're given a whole bunch of units. Your expectation is to try and hold out against the enemy. There are a couple of beachheads. The mission is very fleshed out. You've got a key structure here. I'm not going to spend too long on this because people want to go off and play on their own. But just so you get an idea of what kind of thing to expect. It also changes based on the difficulty that you choose. So for example, I think on mental difficulty you don't get that promotion crate at the start, for example. So it's not just in terms of like, oh, you get more units, you get or your units get more armor and health and the enemy gets more units. It's a bit more well fine-tuned than that, it seems, from my impression of it. They give you options to capture extra tech structures here, kind of like secondary objectives. Nice that they include little hints, but it's pretty cool. We're not going to try hard at this. This is going to be like more or less a failed attempt. I'm just curious to see what we'll just, you know, give a little bit of look of how this handles without spoiling too much. So here's your little bulldog tank. Has a secondary fire there, which kind of weakens your enemies. Don't think I can target my own? No. But then you can switch it and it just does a standard fire attack. So that's a good demonstration of the alt fire mechanic that they've introduced in the game. And this is a good example as well of how they go about teaching players about it. Like, it's the very first mission, they're like, hey, by the way, this tank that you have access to, it can do something different. There's a lot of cool custom assets here too, like join the allies. Missions tend to open up, cool mod DB poster as well. Like it's not uncommon for like a mission like this that's say halfway through after doing like the initial slog with a bunch of individual units to then get access to like an MCV or access to like existing structures on the map and things like that. So like it wouldn't surprise me in a map like this if after, you know, defending against the wave or two, you might get access to like a whole base or something. It'd be pretty cool. And it happens quite often in these missions, so it's interesting that they've gone that sort of route. And you can see like the Soviet invasion here happening. It's pretty cool. Like it's a nice setting. They do a really good job kind of trying to tie the missions together, especially with like the post-mission briefings where they're like, oh, you came in and you know, prevented the Soviet wave from attacking, or you didn't prevent it from attacking. Now this is happening as a consequence. Yeah, hopefully that gives you like just a little bit of a taste of what the campaign missions can be like. Obviously, you know, it varies throughout. There's 24 missions or so per each faction, per each campaign, which is still so much. But they really did a cool job with it. You can see here, even the detail and the mapping and stuff is just, it's so nice. And it is really enjoyable to play through. And I will say that if you are discouraged by, let's say, the difficulty and stuff, you can turn it down to easy and it should be relatively friendly to play. Normal is how I've been doing it. It's been enough of a challenge to keep me going. And mental is if you're looking for a really a really rough time for yourself. But yeah, you can see here a couple of cure offs and stuff coming in as well. So yeah, that's kind of like a brief look at what the campaign kind of missions can look like. I don't want to spend too much on it, obviously, because of spoilers and everything else. But hopefully that's a useful overview of the campaign for you folks. But aside from that, we've had a good look at Mental Omega. We had a look through the skirmish. We've had a brief talk at the start about all the different game modes, everything available. We've had a play through Allies, Soviets, Epsilon and Foehn against each other using the texture game mode here. You can, of course, yourself, if you want to pick this up, you can go check out all these different game modes. It would take me just too long in this video to cover all of them, but you can check out the challenge modes, they're really fun. The co-op modes are also really fun if you have a friend you want to play some kind of single player style missions with, so you don't have to go it alone. It can be a lot of fun. And of course, this customization and stuff is very awesome. The campaign, as you just said there, is absolutely massive. There's no shortage of content, and you can pop on these at any time. There's plenty of guides and stuff on YouTube as well if you get stuck throughout missions. Like I say, I've got my own campaign as well that I'm playing through and uploading to YouTube, so you can feel free to look at that as well. But aside from that, be sure to check out the Mental Omega website. I'll link that below. Check out the Mental Omega Discord if you're interested in this. I'll link it below. Feel free to check out the ModDB page for Mental Omega if you want to get access to the soundtrack and stuff like that. They seem to have the files hosted up there. If you're curious with the map maker statistics and stuff, you can go in here as well once you've got it installed. Very easy to set up. Download, install 3.3.0, and then let the in-game client auto patch it for you, and you should be good to go. If you have any questions or concerns or anything like that about the game getting set up and running, or have any queries, feel free to leave it in the comments below and I'll try to get back to you. But this has been our kind of brief overview of Mental Omega. It's a fantastic mod in my opinion, and I definitely recommend you all go check it out. Be sure to enjoy the rest of the Redditor anniversary, and if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see all you guys next time. Peace out.